a mí.
En la escena del crimen se aseguraron alrededor de 15 casquillos percutidos de arma larga. El cadáver sigue en la morgue de Guadalajara a la espera de que sea identificado por sus familiares.
Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, is the single criminal organization most responsible for these deaths on both sides of the border.
The Jalisco New Generation Cartel took the fight to the next level, shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade.
Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales, a 17-year-old YouTuber, was at the peak of his online career when a notorious Mexican cartel brutally murdered him. The young YouTuber rose to fame due to his party lifestyle and reckless behavior on social media. The teenager's audacity grew along with his publicity, thinking he was invincible, only to suffer a terrifying ending. This is the YouTuber who was kidnapped and tortured for making fun of the cartel. Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales, also known as El Pirata de Culiacan, was a famous young Mexican YouTuber who captured the public's attention at a young age. Juan Luis Lagunas Rosales was born into a dysfunctional family in Sinaloa, Mexico, the city of cartels' dominance. Growing up, Lagunas never knew his father and was abandoned by his mother at a young age. He was eventually raised by his grandmother. Right from the beginning, you can tell that Juan Luis didn't have a married childhood, which explains the later portion of his life. Due to dissatisfaction with his life, Lagunas decided to leave his hometown at the age of 15. The influencer reportedly moved to a nearby town called Culiacan and began washing cars for a living, which was barely sufficient according to Lagunas.
Lo que pasa es que cuando yo tenía como 15 años, sí, 15 años, me fui yo a Culiacán. Sí. Me fui a Culiacán y yo lo que hice, fui al foro y andaba lavando carros porque yo no quería, sin permiso pues, así es.
His rise to social media stardom was rather random. Years after working as a car washer, Juan Luis fell into a life of drinking and partying. Juan Luis went viral overnight when someone posted a video of him drinking an entire bottle of vodka until he felt unconscious.
José Luis Lagunas se hizo famoso en redes sociales por aparecer en videos y fotografías alcoholizado en compañía de mujeres o portando armas de grueso calibre.
The internet has a way of driving someone's life up and down based on views, likes, and engagements. Juan Luis became the subject of entertainment for people on social media, and his popularity brought him from a minimum wage hard worker to a reckless influencer. After the viral video, Juan Luis earned himself an army of followers on social media. Soon, the young man became a YouTube star and was flooded with sudden fame and attention. Juan Luis had thousands of followers on Facebook and Instagram by the age of 17. The cyber world knew him as El Pirata de Culiacan, the Pirate of Culiacan. Like many young influencers and celebrities, Juan Luis was overwhelmed by the influx of publicity. Seeing that the public was responding well to his destructive behavior, Juan Luis took it upon himself to engage in more irresponsible activities while broadcasting them to his followers. Many people actually enjoy watching Juan Luis's negligence on the internet, while others viewed him as an immature, irresponsible teen who's looking for attention. It's a controversial debate when it comes to the source of Juan Luis, but it doesn't make him any less trending. El Pirata de Culiacan spent his days partying and drinking recklessly, and he posted all these videos on his social media pages, hoping to fuel his followers' engagements, and it did. Juan Luis became the most popular teenage influencer in the social media world. Juan Luis had absolutely no regard for the legal drinking age, which is 18 in Mexico. He could be seen in his videos drinking himself into a state of senselessness, but the teen could care less about the consequences as long as the spotlight is still on him. The young man even attempted to make himself seem older by getting tattoos and drawing beards on himself. Basically, Juan Luis would do anything to make himself more appealing to the public, which includes creating provocative content on social media, imitating a luxury lifestyle, posing with many women, smoking, drinking, and even engaging with firearms. In 2017, Juan Luis was arrested for underage drinking, but he was released after a short amount of time. After the arrest, the teen realized he had a drinking problem and had trouble controlling himself when it comes to alcohol, though he hasn't found a solution to these issues yet. At the height of his popularity, Juan Luis was hired to appear in many music videos, and he was even picked up by a major record label company. The teen aspired to pursue a music career. Unfortunately, the way you rise is the way you fall. Overcome by his over-the-top ego and uncontainable attitude, Juan Luis made the most fatal mistake of his life. In December 2017, Juan Luis acted on an ill-advised decision to record a video during one of his intoxication moments. In the video, he could be seen yelling and insulting a person by the name Namasio Ruben Asegura Carvantes, or El Mencho, a big-time drug lord and leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel.
El Mencho a mí.
As you can see, in the video, Juan Luis addresses the crime boss in a very vulgar and careless manner. He says, El Mencho a mí me pela la verga, which translates to, El Mencho can peel my dick. Maybe it was a drunken moment, or perhaps an egotistic action from a teen who's full of himself. Either way, it was an irresponsible deed committed by the teen, and a deed he will soon regret. The video was posted on El Pirata de Culiacan's social media pages and received numerous engagements and views. Undoubtedly, it was probably viewed by the person Juan Luis mentioned in the video. Juan Luis's actions are equivalent to an act of suicide because if you know anything about El Mencho, he's not a man to be messed with.
Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, is the single criminal organization most responsible for these deaths on both sides of the border.
Namacio Ruben Azaguirre Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, was a police officer before he turned into a brutal drug lord running the infamous Jalisco New Generation Cartel. He was born into a smuggling family in a small community known as Culotitran, Aguililla, Michoacan, Mexico, and had 5 brothers. As a kid, El Mencho dropped out of school to help his family's farm work. Eventually, he decided to immigrate to the United States in the 1980s to seek a better life for himself. But instead of seeking the American dream, El Mencho instead found himself tangled in a life of crime at a young age. He was first arrested when he was 19 for stealing property and carrying a loaded gun. Based on border entry records, El Mencho was recorded to have crossed the United States and Mexico border multiple times in the late 1980s by using various alternate identities. Both the DEA and Mexican investigative authorities believe it was during these times that he began manufacturing and trading narcotics in Redwood City. Clearly, the young El Mencho was caught up in the narcotics transactions between the US and Mexico border and decided to make a living of it. In 1989, El Mencho was arrested once again for selling narcotics. This time, he was deported back to Mexico, but he remained persistent and returned to the United States shortly after. Then in 1992, at 26-year-old, for federal drug charges after he and his brother were caught red-handed completing a heroin deal set up by undercover police officers. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but he was granted parole after 3 years. At the age of 30, he was deported to Mexico again. But even with a criminal record, El Mencho was able to join the Mexican police force in Jalisco. Maybe background checks weren't a thing during this time. However, that didn't last long as he soon quit the police force and worked full-time for the Milenio Cartel. Though not as prominent and established as a cartel as the Sinaloa or Tijuana Cartel, the Milenio Cartel is recognized for its involvement in drug trafficking, money laundering, murder, and arms trafficking. The Milenio Cartel became a stepping stone for El Mencho's drug trafficking career. To solidify his position within the cartel, El Mencho forged a strong connection by marrying one of the cartel's leaders' sisters, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia. At this point, El Mencho began climbing the ranks to become one of the most infamous drug lords in the Mexican cartel industry. Initially, El Mencho worked as a member of the assassination squad that protected Armando Valencia Cornelio, or El Maradona, a drug lord and former leader of the Milenio Cartel. However, around August 2023, one of the cartel rivals groups, Los Zetas, launched a violent attack on the Milenio Cartel in Michoacan with support from the Gulf Cartel, forcing the Milenio Cartel to retreat to Jalisco. There, they would ally themselves with a faction of the Sinaloa Cartel led by Ignacio Nacho Coronel, a high-ranking drug lord and an associate of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the former leader of the Sinaloa Cartel. Working under Coronel's command, El Mencho and his group oversaw the Sinaloa Cartel's drug operations, finances, and violent actions in Colima and Jalisco. All seemed settled, but in the cartel world, nothing remained static for too long. On October 28, 2009, the main leader of the Milenio Cartel, Oscar Orlando Nava Valencia, aka El Lobo, was arrested by Mexican authorities. Not long after El Lobo's capture, his brother Juan Carlos, known as El Tigre, was also arrested on May 6, 2010. Following the chain of bad news, Coronel was killed in a shootout by the Mexican army approximately 2 months later. The death and arrest of the Milenio Cartel's leaders caused a structural imbalance with the cartel and a disruption with their operations. A faction of the Milenio Cartel aimed to appoint El Dedido Bojero Ramirez, or El Pilo, as the new leader because he was closely associated with Oscar Orlando and Juan Carlos before their capture. However, another faction wanted El Mencho to take charge of the cartel. The dispute over leadership led to an internal conflict within the organization, resulting in a split. The Milenio Cartel fragmented into various new groups. The most significant was La Resistencia, led by El Pilo, and Los Metazetas, led by El Mencho. Following the split, intense rivalry escalated between these two factions. La Resistencia claimed that Los Metazetas had betrayed Oscar Orlando, leading to his arrest. This ignited serious conflicts between the two groups, sparking bloody turf wars as they vied for control over drug smuggling territories in Jalisco. El Mencho's cartel employed various tactics to protect legitimacy. They exposed rival gangs for victimizing ordinary people, businesses, and officials through extortion. Eventually, Los Metazetas emerged victorious and grew stronger in western Mexico. El Mencho later rebranded the organization as the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Despite being a recently formed criminal entity, the Jalisco New Generation rapidly ascended in power, becoming one of the major drug cartels in Mexico. They engaged in various criminal activities, including murders, trafficking, and extortions.
It is a very powerful criminal group, Jose, very well organized and very dangerous. Authorities were really surprised to see the violence this group is capable of after they had an encounter on May 1st in Guadalajara, which is one of the main cities in the country, in the whole country. And as you said, they managed to bring down a military helicopter with 16 soldiers on board.
Under El Mencho's leadership, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel expanded its territory and influenced government officials. From being a small group, it grew into a major criminal organization in Mexico. During this time, El Mencho became one of the most wanted criminals in Mexico and the United States due to various reasons. The two countries are offering millions of dollars of bounty for information that can lead them closer to arresting El Mencho.
Tonight, the DEA is offering $10 million for information leading to the arrest of the Mexican drug kingpin known as El Mencho.
It's reported that El Mencho manages all of Jalisco New Generation Cartel's drug operations in Jalisco, Colima, and Guanajuato. He established a strong base for making and selling methamphetamine. In 2019, Kyle Morey, who leads the DEA team trying to find El Mencho, told Univision that he thinks El Mencho might have around $500 million or even more than $1 billion in his net worth. Due to the nature of his illegal transactions, it's impossible to calculate the exact numbers of his wealth, but it's fair to say drug traffickers like El Mencho are well above the middle class. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel gained attention by using violent acts in public, which got them noticed. They also directly attacked other rival crime organizations and Mexico's security forces, making El Mencho a top enemy of the state. As other crime leaders fell, El Mencho's prominence increased. According to his criminal charges, we can tell that El Mencho has a reputation for bloodshed. Beside gang rivalries and turf wars, El Mencho is known for spreading violence to establish control. In Ocatlan, Jalisco, on March 19, 2015, the Jalisco cartel ambushed a group of federal police. A total of 11 people died. 5 were police officers, 3 were civilians, and 3 were cartel attackers. The attack was reportedly carried out by the Jalisco cartel to defend El Mencho, who was said to be nearby for a meeting. On March 30th, the Jalisco cartel gunmen ambushed a convoy in Zapopan, Jalisco, which included Jalisco Security Commissioner Alejandro Solora Arachiga. Thankfully, no one was killed in the gunfire. Another incident happened on April 6th when the New Generation Cartel's gunmen blocked a road in the San Sebastián del Oeste, Jalisco. They set a vehicle on fire and attacked a convoy of the Jalisco State Police, resulting in the deaths of 15 police officers and injuries of 5 others. Yeah, and that wasn't the worst ambush the cartel had planned. They've been known to target the Mexican military.
Hoping in the fight against the drug cartels in Mexico, the latest cartel target, Mexico's military. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel took the fight to the next level, shooting down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade, killing people, 6 of them, last week. Look at that.
As we can see, Namasio Ruben Asegura Carvantes isn't a person you want to challenge. But, of course, Juan Luis's poor judgment and arrogance led to his tragic ending. The teen's hasty decisions to insult the drug lord on the internet was something not to be taken lightly, especially not by someone known for their violence and brutality. Unbeknownst to the teen, his consequences were waiting for him. A few weeks later, after Juan Luis posted the video insulting El Mencho, he decided to go out with friends to party. He even posted the location of the bar he was going to and asked his followers to come out and hang with him. So that night, Juan Luis pursued another evening of partying and drunkenness with his friends at a bar in Jalisco. However, the night of fun and lightness turned into a nightmare. 4 gunmen entered the establishment and started opening fire at the people in the bar. It was nothing short of a massacre. Juan Luis sustained around 15 bullet wounds, causing him to die on the spot. His injuries were so severe the police had to identify him by his tattoos. Authorities have reason to believe that the masked assailant was there to target Juan Luis. And although the assassin information was aimed at Juan Luis, there was much collateral damage. A 25-year-old bar attendant's life was lost as a result of the shooting spree. People and authorities are strongly convinced that El Mencho is behind the assassination of Juan Luis. The drug lord has a motive and he definitely has the resources. But there were no arrests made due to the lack of evidence. When news spread about Juan Luis's passing, it caused a lot of talk on social media. Some criticized how he acted, while others felt sad for the young life lost. People who knew him well said he was full of life and positivity, underscoring the sadness of his life being cut short. Amongst the people in the bar that day, there were two people by the name of Roberto Gonzalez and Benjamin Lopez who were friends with Juan Luis, and they were also present at the bar the day of the shooting.
De repente volteo así como hacia enfrente y yo nomás escucho, o no sé si fue como el instinto así como de que volteas por el ruido porque después te pa.
Balazos fuertes y todos nos tiramos al piso, no vimos el rostro de nadie, de los sospechosos, nada. Todo fue muy rápido, en un abrir y cerrar de ojos.
Mi instinto fue como de me paro, echo un brinco por acá, güey, como me escondo así como detrás de algo y veo que hay una puerta por detrás, corro rapidísimo, me doy cuenta que esto pasó como en menos de un minuto, fue así todo de ¡pum!
It's important for people to realize the dangers of living a reckless and provocative online life and the consequences of irresponsibility. Surprisingly, you could think the story of Juan Luis and his terrible fate would scare others into not repeating the same mistake. But another young person found it within himself to take a risky path as well. A few years later, after the incident of Juan Luis's death, another teen took it to TikTok to openly insult El Mencho on social media, showing a lack of concern for the consequences.
Mira bien, hijo de tu puta madre. A mí me pega la verga el Mencho. Aquí si nomás se los digo puro 420. Yo no me duermo como el pirata o el chanito de Culiacán. Yo soy inmortal, yo soy intocable y yo soy un pato con el diablo, cabrón. Así que si no sabes de mí, de existencia, yo te vine a mandar fuego, Mencho. Así que no me da miedo decir esto, cabrón. Yo lo digo fuera en cámaras o aquí, cabrón. Así que ni me la madre el Mencho.
This can be considered another suicide note from another content creator. From the video, you can tell this man knows about the cartel's past killings. He's not unaware or acting on the spur of the moment. This person purposely made this video to address El Mencho. There isn't a word to describe this situation. You can imagine the viewers of this video are probably sitting on the edge of their seats, either yelling or praying for this man's life. Except, things took a little unexpected turn. The teen ended up posting a follow-up apology video to El Mencho.
Para el señor Mencho, pido disculpas, lo que dije no estaba bien, no estaba consciente de lo que estaba diciendo, estaba mal. Ese día amanecí bien pendejo. No me di las consecuencias, me dejé llevar por los seguidores y pido disculpas, se te quiere, a ti y a tu familia. Y Mencho, no me mates, cabrón, yo tengo familia así como usted y pido mis disculpas. Aquí todos cometemos errores y pues Dios está viendo todo eso, así que pido disculpas porque la verdad no sé lo que estaba haciendo. Todos cometemos errores y yo tengo problemas psicológicos, así que acuérdese, Señor, que se le quiere.
Maybe he came to his senses and realized his mistake, or he was spoke to by a commentator of his previous video, or maybe he really did it for the followers and planned to apologize afterwards, hoping it would keep him alive. Whatever it is, hopefully the apology video will preserve his life. Though the outcome wasn't as bad this time, it's a strong reminder that some lessons are slow to be learned. Just something else to add to the plot. Maybe the reason why El Mencho didn't go after this teen has something to do with an unconfirmed report in February 2022 stating that El Mencho had died from respiratory arrest while undergoing medical treatment in a private hospital in Guadalajara. This is an unconfirmed source, although in 2022 it was reported that El Mencho suffers from kidney disease, so the theory that El Mencho can't seek vengeance because he's dead is possible. Again, this information is from an unconfirmed source. El Mencho could very much still be living and breathing healthily. Juan Luis Lugones Rosales' story is a sad example of how the power of social media, the allure of fame, and reckless actions can lead to deadly results. It's a clear warning that online fun comes with serious consequences, especially when facing formidable groups like the New Generation Cartel. Juan Luis's tragic experience illustrates how important it is to behave responsibly online, a lesson he shouldn't have forgot in a rush for likes, shares, and popularity. Juan Luis's tragic fate sets an example for young influencers who engage in risky online behavior for the sake of publicity. What are your thoughts on this cautionary tale of a young YouTuber who underestimated the power of the cartel? Please remember to be responsible and respectful in your online conduct, especially when dealing with dangerous entities. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so we can notify you if a notorious crime boss is after you.